Let's talk about the token shop and where you should be spending your hard-earned tokens in Marvel Snap. We've got a guide for you where we're going to go over all of the Series 4 and Series 5 cards and see where do you want to spend your tokens. We're going to break this up into a must buy, a maybe buy, and a don't buy. Our hope is this video and guide will help you spend those tokens in the most effective spots for you. One thing that we do want to mention is everybody is different as far as their gameplay goes, how much tokens they have. So some of this stuff is going to be generally subjective, but I think in general, it's going to give you an idea of where you want to spend your tokens for any Series 4 or Series 5 cards in Marvel Snap. Some items we want to mention before diving into this. Again, we mentioned it before. This is subjective to how you play, how much tokens you have, etc. We've got 3 rankings, and it all really depends on what you want to do as far as your gameplay. We're going to try to guide you where to spend your tokens on those Series 4 and Series 5 cards in the token shop. Things to remember with this graphic. It's not going to be the same for everybody. We're going to have people who like a certain archetype, etc. So think about that when you're doing it. We're going to have different types of spenders. You might have way more tokens saved up than somebody else. That might mean you're free to be a little bit more frivolous with what you want to do. You might just be like, I like that one, and get it. If you're a little bit cheaper or free to play, then you need to be careful with how you spend it. We've tried to balance all of these things in trying to help you decide where to spend your tokens in the token shop for Marvel Snap. When looking at the graphic, like we mentioned, we have a must buy, maybe buy, don't buy. Within each one of these categories, the top row is meant to be a little bit better than the bottom row, and then the left side's meant to be a little bit better than the right. Now, having said that, let's go through this. So we've got to start off with the don't buy section. We'll go over the way to the bottom right hand of this, move ourselves out of the way quickly. The last 2 cards on here, do not touch these without a doubt. I can confidently tell you Snow Guard and Howard the Duck are not worth spending any tokens on, period. I was talking with a number of people who look at this graphic. I like to share it with people and say anything out there just seemed way off. GC James, thank you. Glazer, Lauren, whatever, Corrales, thank you for chiming in a little bit with some of your opinions. Now, again, I might not have agreed with all of them, but I always like chatting. We joked a little bit. Can there be a separate category for Snow Guard? That would be lower than don't buy. So that tells you all you need to know about that card. Stegron is also at the bottom of this list. I think he's an okay card. It feels a little bad here. I just don't think it's worth spending any tokens on at all. As we move over to the left, the next 3 cards on this list are Echo is first. I think she's a nice card to have, but she's so insanely narrow. You do not want to spend 6,000 tokens on a card like Echo. It's just not going to bring you the returns you really want. Similar with Jean Grey, I think Jean Grey is actually a better card than Echo and is going to play into the meta at some point down the line. It just doesn't seem to be happening right now. There's been some talk too that maybe she should be played a little bit later in game as opposed to earlier, so you can force an opponent to play on a particular spot. Maybe a wave Jean Grey combo to say, you know what? I've got these other 2 lanes locked down. I'm going to force them to play 1 card in this other lane. Master Mold is really sort of a niche card again. If you're playing Ronin, which really isn't part of the meta, and you sort of want to junk a little bit with your opponent, Master Mold's a thought, but right now, I would not spend even 3,000 tokens on Master Mold. Swinging back to the right side, upper row of don't buy, Silk. Now, it feels weird to have Silk here. She's a good card. The only reason she's in this section is because of the cost of this card and the RNG for where she can go, because there might be a chance she just swings to a lane you don't want her to go to, and that stinks. And I'm not going to pay 6,000 tokens for that. You could certainly shuri her, make her stronger, be a little bit better, but it is a lot of RNG, and for 6,000 tokens, I am not going to spend my hard-earned currency on that card. Ghost Spider, I think decent card, but just not worth the 6,000 tokens. Now, again, these were great cards to buy during, say, season pass type things, but you're not going to spend any tokens on Ghost Spider. Living Tribunal, we were debating a little bit. Multiple people said this to me, is they thought Living Tribunal should go higher. I personally couldn't do it. It is a decent card, but I don't think it is worth or even thinking about buying this card for 6,000 tokens. It is insanely easily countered with a deck like, well, not even a deck, a card like Super Scroll, because typically what you're getting with your Living Tribunal is an Onslaught, an Iron Man type of situation where you've got doubles ups. The other option is the Hela Living Tribunal situation, which that can be tough a little bit, but again, can be semi-easily countered, and it can be hard for somebody to get that play off because Hela is really high risk, high reward. So for that reason, I had to leave Living Tribunal and don't buy. Next, I've got Spider-Man 2099 and Negasonic. I just think that these cards, even though they're only 3,000 tokens, are not impactful enough for you to spend your hard-earned tokens. Now, I think if you're somebody who likes this archetype and has a lot of tokens saved, these aren't bad buys. They can be fun. Negasonic can help you guarantee a lane. It can help you blow a card up that you need to blow up. So in that regard, it's decent. It can help you build up your null a little bit as well. Personally, I'd still think I'd like to see Negasonic as maybe a 2/4. And with Spider-Man 2099, I just think it's hard to really get him to do anything impactful in the RNG on the destroy. For that reason, I'm not necessarily looking to spend tokens on. Now, the last three in Don't Buy, I had moved these around a little bit. Hitmonkey was actually in Maybe Buy previously. The reason I moved him to Don't Buy is because of two things. 6,000 tokens, and he's not as meta as he used to be. I think it's a good card. I think it's a fun card to play with. I'm happy, again, season pass, but just because it's in a season pass doesn't mean you should then later spend 6,000 tokens on it. When you spend $10 to get a card, what's the equivalency of dollars to 6,000 tokens? Go look at some offers in game. You're not getting 6,000 tokens for 10 US dollars. It's not happening. So for that reason, I'm gonna have a card like this in Don't Buy. Phoenix Force, very similar. I like the card. I enjoy playing it. But at this point, if you didn't spend your $10 to get the season pass, I'm not going to tell you to put tokens into that card. Kang, Kang, our relationship is gone from so good to just this weird situation where I can't recommend you. I had him a little bit higher only because he was a big bad, but he's just in such a weird spot in the game. Yes, you can play mind games with your opponent, but it also plays mind games with you. I think he needs a rework. I was suggesting a little bit, maybe it could be something where if you play Kang, your opponent plays in certain lanes. If then in the actual subsequent non-Kang turn, after he rewinds everything, your opponent can only play in the lanes where they played before. They can change their order, they can change their cards, but they can only play in that lane. I think that might make Kang a little bit stronger and I think a decent card, and still give the opponent an opportunity to be like, oh, look, I'm winning regardless. So you know where I'm going to go, but you still might not know what I'm going to put there. I think that might be a decent balance, something to think of. Let me know what you think of that one in the comments below. All right, next up, we've got Maybe Buys. Now, at the bottom of Maybe Buys, I had Galactus in a must buy before, and I could actually see him when Alioth comes around, is he's going to move up. But right now, I try to do these in a silo so that it's like, right now, what would you do? But I had to mention that to you just in case you're on the fence. Galactus is just not really impacting the game right now. Yes, he's capable of winning. There are some decent decks with him, but it's not really a great use of 6,000 tokens at the moment. Am I happy I have him? Yeah, sure. Do I ever really play him? No. Do I lose against them? Sometimes. I just don't think you want to spend that amount of tokens on a card like that right now. But again, when Alioth is here, that might change. Next, we've got Nimrod, who is actually a good card to go along with Galactus. And Nimrod is a cheaper card. You see him a lot more, straight up, destroyed. He's great. From where he was before, I think this is fine. He was a card that really nobody liked for a long time, but I think is definitely worth the 3,000 tokens. Mirage was going back and forth on this one between putting in Don't Buy or not, but I think the fact that she's only a 2-cost card, you get some additional power and gain some knowledge from your opponent. I had to leave this in a Maybe Buy section because anybody who's maybe playing Devil Dino type decks, I think this is a really good card to have. And for 3,000 tokens, I think it's worth it. Last on the bottom row is Spider-Ham. Arguably could be moved up to the top row. It's a great card, 2/2, really can damage your opponent. You see some information. Good card. I would not fault anybody for spending any tokens on Spider-Ham. 2 cards that are Series 5 still, but I'm not sure that I would spend 6,000 tokens on are Nebula and Kitty Pryde. 2 of the strongest 1-cost cards in the game, but that is a lot of tokens to spend. I just don't think I'd do it. Killmonger easily takes these out. When we have so much other things to spend our tokens on, I don't think I could spend that much on cards like this. Again, bounce has changed a bit. Kitty's still pretty strong, especially coming off of this Shuri weekend. Everyone was playing her, but I think right now I wouldn't spend the tokens there. Stature, I wouldn't be surprised if she drops here soon in the near future to maybe Series 3. She's still a good card, but she does need to be paired up with a card that can discard from your opponent. At 1/6, she's an absolute buy. I think she's definitely towards the upper end of this section. There's not much to talk about her. I still think she's great. I've lost several games to the Stature Black Bolt thing when I have Death in my hand because Black Bolt takes out Death, and that is so painful. You did all that work and Death's just gone. Last but not least in the Maybe Buy section is MODOK. MODOK is insanely important in any discard archetype at this point. So if you're into that archetype, he is a critical card. There was some discussion of potentially moving him down, but I personally couldn't do it because I just think discard is still a strong archetype. I think it's going to be continuing to be stronger. With Docking upon us, it helps get rid of that shard. We'll see how it goes once Silver Samurai is here and everything. but I still think MODOK is a top tier maybe buy. Now let's go through the must buys. I have moved Iron Lad and Jeff both into the must buy section. Now I want to give some caveats to this. I originally did not have them up here because they were 6,000 tokens. But the truth is these two cards are some of the best cards in the game. They're insanely versatile. They make good decks phenomenal. And for that reason, they are worth that amount of tokens. Now, I will also say if you are not somebody who has a bunch of tokens or you do not have a wide collection, they might not be worth it to you. You've really got to think about that. But generally speaking, these two cards are top tier and you can't really necessarily argue about that. They're absolutely phenomenal. Next up, we've got Null, who's still lingering around in Series 4. Gosh, when is this guy going to drop? We'll see. He's one of the better cards in the game. I just still think for 3,000 tokens, he's worth it. I wouldn't be surprised if him and Darkhawk stay in Series 4 for basically ever. And speaking of Darkhawk, we've got him and Legion in the next couple spots here. I think they're both phenomenal. Legion could arguably higher than both of these cards in that top row. Legion, I think almost everybody underestimated. You do not need him with just Storm. The fact of how much he can impact a game is literally insane. Lockdowns, just messing with your opponents. The shenanigans that go along with Legion are insanely fun. Darkhawk, I've mentioned, he's still in the meta, probably always going to be in the meta. I think right now he's still worth buying, even if he falls off a little bit for 3,000 tokens. Again, I expect him to stay in Series 4 for a long, long time. The only card in the top row that is not a permanent big bad is Zabu. Zabu is such an impact card for getting those 4 costs cheaper. And there are so many strong 4-cost cards in game. I think Zabu is absolutely worth 3,000 tokens. He opens up so many different things for you if you have those good 4 cards. Not much more to be said to it. I think he's in a great spot. I love having him here. And then the last 2 cards in the must-buy section are our 2 big permanent bads that I haven't mentioned. High Evolutionary and Thanos. High Evolutionary I originally had ahead of Thanos, but with some of the changes to High Evolutionary, I've moved him back behind Thanos. And I think that's fine. They're really neck and neck. I didn't put either of them in the first slot. I really like to put something there if I'm like, look, this is just 100% yes, yes, yes. I think either of these, it's like, yeah, they're both good. I think High Evolutionary is still a critical card for beginners to buy because when you've got that card, it opens up a lot of the early cards to be way more meta and climb a lot faster. You want that infinite rank, you want that gold, High Evolutionary is going to get you there really, really quickly, given that a lot of the cards he builds up are easy to get. Thanos, again, he's just so many different decks, so many different things. He opens up the games for players. If you get 6,000 tokens, I would not hesitate in buying Thanos. Both of these cards, top tier. So that's all we got. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Please comment below. There's a Discord link in the description, but would love to hear it there. We'll share it on Twitter, etc. These things are meant to be openly discussed. I can't wait to hear how everyone says, how didn't you not have this person here or that person there? It's a great conversation. If you want to check out more videos, please check whatever YouTube's recommending you that's popping up right now. And if you want to help further support the channel, please hammer down that like button. If you want to help financially support the channel, we've got Patreons, join on YouTube, all that sort of thing. Always appreciate that. And until next time, hope you have a wonderful day.